Welcome to Voices from the Bench, a dental laboratory podcast. Send us an email at info@voicesfromthebench.com or look for us on Facebook at Voices from the Bench. Greetings and welcome to episode number 26 of Voices from the Bench. My name is Elvis Dahl.
This is Barbara Wojin, that after 26 episodes, we don't really need to say, I'm Barbara Wojin, I'm from Knight Dental Group, Oldsmar, Florida. So I'm just Barbara Wojin. Elvis is my partner, and this is episode 26.
Can you believe this actually marks halfway through our first year? Outstanding.
I can, because we've been doing this every Sunday and pretty much regularly. So I can definitely tell you that it feels like a half of the year, but it's been a great year, and I think we're getting better and better and better. So yay!
Yeah, doing this podcast has been an amazing experience and one of my most proudest accomplishments in my life.
Wow.
I have connected with so many great people and have personally learned so much from the guests we've had on. I'd like to thank all of our past guests, future guests, all the great listeners who have supported the podcast and continue to spread the word about the great industry that we all love so much. And a big thank you to my co-host, Barbara Wojin, the Trojan.
Thanks, man. I wasn't expecting that, but you're welcome. And I, too, have learned a tremendous amount of things from all of these interviews, especially the one that we're doing today about air quality. I actually had Blake come down to Knight Dental, take a look at my air quality, and I actually purchased, 8 systems, which are going to be shipped tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. Yeah, you sounded pretty sold during the interview.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty important part of our life. And I know it is very important to all of my employees at Knight Dental Group. So to have them come out and to listen to the things that Tad and Bob have done for their laboratories kind of inspired me.
Nice.
You know what they say, believe what you do and do what you believe. So these podcasts are, really emotional for me, and this is serious. And when we bring people online like this and we talk to them, this is the third or fourth one that I've actually brought out to Knight Dental. So it's been an amazing experience for me.
So let's get right to it. This week, we continue our conversation with Tad, Blake, and Mike about cleaning up the air at our dental labs. This week, they talk more about how the AeraMax Pro can provide a better work environment for you, your employees, and let's not forget your equipment. Let's get back to the fellows from Fellows.
Let's do it.
Voices from the Bench. The interview.
The sixth parameter that they look at. And originally in 2015, they grouped together a number of dental professions, and that took the number one spot out of 27 jobs. And then in 2018, when they updated that list, they actually extended it to publish a list of 47 of the most damaging and unhealthy occupations. And in that updated list in 2018, out of the top 7, 5 of them are dental-related occupations. And the number 4 spot is actually a dental laboratory technician.
Wow.
The reason that was ranked number 4 is, first of all, exposure to contamination. It scored 99 out of a possible 100. Time spent sitting was the second reason, scoring 85 out of 100. And then the third reason was exposure to disease and infection, which scored 72 out of 100. So out of all the parameters, it scored a total of 65.7, which put it at number 4. The number 1 spot scoring 72.8. So it's scary. And this was ranked more unhealthy than professions such as flight attendants, vets, mining-related industries, critical care nurses, elevator repair and installers, radiologists. There was some scary occupations below this in the rankings. So the the sit stand option is a key component of health in a lab environment. That's for sure.
That is scary.
That's a great point. I'm training my 20-year-old son, and I've been a dental technician my whole life, and he constantly is complaining about his back. And I'm like, Jesus, you're 20 years old, man. What's your deal? Because I guess I just have a tolerance for it. But, he's constantly, worried about his back. He's talking about his neck. He's like, I'm uncomfortable. I need a new chair. So it kind of opens my eyes to a different way of looking at it. So again, I think that's pretty amazing. I never ever thought about, standing up and working. But hell, I'd be interested in that as well. You guys are selling me. Come to my laboratory.
It's a great opportunity for the whole health and wellness play in your environment. So with clean air, a sit-stand desk, and anti-fatigue mat that you stand on, it all plays together.
Awesome.
So Barbara, when you own a laboratory and you have employees, you do things that are supposed to be benefits, right? You may start we all start a 401k knowing that maybe a lot of the technicians won't or can't afford to put very much or any at all into it, but it's a benefit that you give them. So when I started, I was like, well, worst case, it's going to at least show that I care and I'm offering to do things as a benefit to my employees. But in reality, this turned out to be amazing. I mean, it is just truly working.
I can totally see it. I mean, coming from my perspective, that's all my employees care about is the way they breathe and the way they feel. And if you're, somebody that's owning a laboratory or managing a laboratory that cares about your employees, which after this podcast, every one of us do, and everybody we've talked to does, I'm really glad that we're having this because I'd like to spread the news.
Yeah. Well, if it's out there and you choose to ignore it and heaven forbid something would happen, it's kind of a tough situation to be in my opinion. If you're doing everything that you can and above and beyond to protect people, then you're doing everything you can, which is great.
You can sleep at night. Yep. Love it.
So Tad, how long have you had the systems in your lab?
Blake, what do you think? 3 years? Are we like 3 years from the start?
Yeah, I would say close to 3 years from the start. The new units with the PureView technology, we installed those back in November of last year. But for air quality, it's been 3 years.
How many of the units do you have?
Tad has 7.
How many units does Tad have?
No, I have 9.
Yeah.
I have 9.
Wow. So what sort of square footage does each unit filter?
Sure. Depending on the size of the application or what room we're talking about, and how many air exchanges you're looking to have, the units will cover from 300 square feet up to 1,400 square feet. And that's based on air exchanges up to pretty much every 12 minutes, you'll get a fresh air exchange.
12 minutes, it does the whole room?
Yeah, based on the square footage, correct.
Wow.
Are they connected to the air conditioner or what? How do they work?
It's localized air treatment. So, the solution we offer is to get the air purifier as close to the employees as possible. So that, HVAC systems have always been developed and they're known for moving air, heating and cooling. They've never really been utilized as an air purifier per se. So we believe in localized air treatment. So the units are integrated right on the wall. We're within the lab and the different rooms best. And we lay out the best location based on airflow. And so we call it localized air treatment. In an HVAC system, as we all know, if you increase the MERV rating on a filter, your HVAC system is going to be working that much harder. And so by providing the localized air treatment where your employees are, it's truly the best in class air purification you can have for them.
Wow.
We didn't mention this, but our units, they remove down to 0.3 microns, and bacteria and viruses are typically in that range. We've been certified to capture the H1N1 influenza virus. And so any shared space, so we've been really talking about particles in the air, but we also remove bacteria and viruses. So shared spaces within the lab, if Sally comes to work with a cold or she has the flu, anything that's airborne, we can help remove. So that should truly help with absenteeism down the road.
This is a really important, completely separate conversation as well, because, often we get challenged on what's the return on my investment. If I put this in, and that's a difficult conversation to have sometimes, because, if you listen to the way you guys are talking about this and the way Tad talks about this as well, this is about him having the peace of mind that he's doing the best he can for for his people. But putting that aside, as really an emotive benefit, which does truly make a difference to the people. If you take influenza as an example, there's well-published information out there that states that if one person walks in, an infected person walks into a typical work environment, then typically 15% of people in that environment are gonna contract the flu. They're gonna take on that virus. So if you take a lab which can, let's say a lab with 14 people in it, one person walks in, that's 2 people that are likely to take on that virus. They're going to be sick. And there's well published information about the daily cost per person out there. If that one person who walks in and then there's 2 people who get that virus end up taking time off, typically it's 3 days off with the flu. That's $8,000
easily.
$8,000 straight away. So
yeah.
Forget about the specific challenges of a dental laboratory and the chemical concerns and the airborne dust and particle matter. If you can avoid one basic outbreak of influenza in your lab in the first year of having this in place, it's paid for. So that's something that we don't focus on so much for the dental lab environment, but it's a true additional benefit above and beyond the specific challenges of these facilities.
I had 24 employees go down last year with the flu in a matter of a month, and I was a crazy woman, went out and bought sanitizers and wipes and you name it, masks, the whole 9 yards, but it's a true fact that a place like ours, everybody touches everything that everybody else has touched. So once the flu comes into a laboratory like ours, we're in trouble. So, I mean, that's an exceptional benefit. Once again, I was already sold, but now I'm really sold because I can't stand that.
The common approach for people to take when it comes to influenza prevention or a reaction to an outbreak, even more so, is to really focus on hand hygiene and surface hygiene, which are definitely important. They're important components of a holistic flu management plan. But if you look at the guidance from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention here in the US, they actually published that the most likely transfer of the influenza virus is through aerosols that become airborne through coughing, sneezing, talking, all day-to-day activities that cause the creation of these aerosols, and they remain airborne for a significant period of time. So that person-to-person transfer is actually more likely to take place through the inhaling of the virus as opposed to the surface transmission. So that's where the role of an air quality system in a lab can go above and beyond even the core risks and the core challenges that a dental lab faces.
So let's start talking about if a lab is interested in having you guys come to do the test, what does that involve? And then if you want to talk about it, what are some of the costs to get into some of these systems and the maintenance on them? Basically,
if a lab is interested to provide a healthier environment, especially on air quality, we'd be happy to set up after a dialogue or two over the phone, try to get some basic information on the lab, set up an on-site demonstration and air quality check where we can actually do some air quality monitoring and demonstration of our air treatment systems. At that time, we would also like to, if we can, get a blueprint of the lab. So then when we go back to the office, we can do a lab layout with our engineers to make sure we get the proper locations for installations. And then we put together a proposal and a quote, and we go over the proposal and quote with the lab owner. And part of the quote for the actual machines, they range from $700 up to $2,000 based on the size of the machine or the square footage we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And on average, installation for the units to be hard piped in or just looped off an existing line can range from $100 up to $350 nationally for a certified electrician to install. These units draw very little power. On average, they're only pulling about 21 watts. Mm-hmm. So typically, You can just tap into an existing electrical line, and you don't need to hard pipe it or add new breakers to it. But it's a pretty simple process that we've streamlined, and we'd be excited to definitely go to some on-site visits of some labs and give some proposals.
You mentioned 6-month filter change. What does a filter cost?
That's a great question. The HEPA filter, when Mike said the change of the HEPA filter, in a typical office environment where the HEPA filter was really engineered for a year and a half of performance. After that, you're going to start cutting down air exchanges. In a dental lab, because of the air quality and what we're pulling out of the air, and especially with testing at Tad's lab, it's majority of the filters are lasting probably 8 to 10 months, but you'll have some filters in milling rooms and some other locations where you probably need to replace those every 6 months. A HEPA filter twin pack, on average, the cost of it could be, for 2 of them, you're talking $180 to $250 for a twin pack.
That's not that bad.
No, it's not too bad. And then what we really recommend is there's a pre-filter. So part of the 4-stage filtration process, there's a pre-filter, and that pre-filter is a very inexpensive filter that's really capturing a lot of the larger particles, and it's saving the life of that HEPA filter. And that pre-filter, depending on, again, what room, could be every 2 to 4 months. And those are, like I had mentioned, they're very inexpensive. The cost on those are $9 to $16. And that's for a 4-pack of those.
Wow. Okay. That's not too bad. That's extremely doable.
That's a small price to pay for quality.
Is that something your maintenance department can take care of, or is that something that you guys have to come down and do?
No, it's very simple to change out the filters. We'll train the facility manager, get them in a rotation. We do have filter lights that remind the facility manager on when the filters need to be changed. But based on the different applications throughout the lab, it's really to get in a good cadence on the calendar of when to be switching them out.
Okay, cool. It's a no-brainer then. I like it.
How noisy are these things? Do they make a lot of noise?
When it's on fan speed 5, and again, it'll go to fan speed 5, the highest fan speed, when there's 20 minutes of no motion or sound. So that's pretty much when nobody's in the office. They will kick onto the highest fan speed, and they are louder. On the typical fan speed 4, the decibels are, Mike, what is it?
It's in the low 50s, low 50 decibels. So, what we typically find is if you think of a general office environment, fan speed 4 can be a little bit intrusive, but in a dental lab environment, or a typical environment like this where there is a lot of noise as part of the processes that take place, it's really not a concern. And, I think the best person to ask about noise would be Tad. I mean, what's the feedback from your people?
They're a little intrusive on 5 and 4. 5 for sure. 5 is definitely meant for after hours or cleaning a space where people are not working. Mm-hmm. We typically run ours on 3 or 4, depending on the space. 3 is a no-brainer. You can't hear it at all. That's in our CAD CAM department where they're designing. They run on 3. Main laboratory runs on 4, and that's very acceptable. And then we clean at night on 5.
Cool.
So when it's on 3, you can't hear it at all?
I have to put my head up to them and see if they're running.
Nice. So have you seen a major improvement in the health of your employees, Tad?
I don't know about the health of my employees. I think
we're dental technicians, Elvis. We're not healthy at all. Just saying.
I definitely have not tracked it down to whether we've trapped the influenza virus or not. But I can tell you this, the employees will all tell you they can tell the difference in the cleanliness of the lab for sure. And they would all have a mutiny if I were to try to take them out.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, it is. That's my lab. I'm going to mimic you, Tad. You're my hero. Seriously. I totally want to do this. Because it's a big deal in my lab. It really is, like really, really big deal. So
yeah, it is a big deal. I think it's been glossed over for a long time now, and I really think it's a big deal.
Yeah,
it just is.
Maybe Tad, you can talk about with the expensive equipment now that are in labs and scanners. I was speaking with a sales rep that sells scanners, and their scanner was down in one of her labs for, a half a day. And after they did all the fact finding with the home office and technicians, it turned out to be a dirty lens.
Yep.
And they didn't have a good air quality system in place. So just the longevity of the expensive equipment, by having cleaner air, it can help keep the expensive equipment operating.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yep. You nailed it right there.
That's an interesting point. With 3D printers, you got to have them almost in a no air zone these days to keep them printing correctly.
Absolutely. I had the carbon guy in last week, and I showed him the space that we would want to use, and I showed him the air cleaner, and he's like, man, we should make all our guys put them in there. Yeah, so, I mean, that's an expensive piece of equipment, so you definitely don't want to run these equipment in dusty environments.
And I'll be honest with you, the prices, for the equipment themselves are not too bad. I mean, they're very affordable. I'm sure I'll need at least 10 of them at Night Dental, but it's not too bad. Do you guys do financing, or is it a one-shot deal? What does it look like for a laboratory large like mine that would bring you guys out there and invest?
Depending on the square footage, the size of the lab, you could be talking on the larger lab size, 40 to 50 units. Mm-hmm. It's all based on square footage. To, one of the smallest labs that we did some business with in Michigan, it was 4 of our larger systems. So it really comes down to the square footage, the size of the lab, ceiling height, enclosures of the rooms with doors. Are they open? So it's be hard to give a good estimate to you over the phone without, actually seeing the lab blueprint.
Of course.
Is there an upfront cost to have you guys come out and do the assessment?
No, there's no upfront cost at all. We just want to make sure that, we'd be on the right page where, that there's serious interest in providing a healthier environment. And, after the initial dialogue, if it makes sense to come make a visit and do some quality checks and go through the demonstration, we're happy to do so.
Yeah, I mean, a nice cup of coffee goes a long way. But other than that,
and a bottle of wine. Hello.
Well, hey.
So let's wrap up. You guys, you present to a lab your findings. How do you answer to the owner that says, "Listen, we've never done it before, and we're fine"?
You're not fine.
How do you answer that question?
I mean, that response is better than anything I could say in a couple of minutes' time. So at the end of the day, that to us is an early indicator that they're really creating excuses as to why they don't want to do this. So, we don't like it, but we're happy to get a no early on in the process, because that requires less of our time to try and battle their own, their own excuse formulation. If people don't believe in the concept of wellness and don't believe in the concept of going above and beyond for their people, then, AeraMax Professional isn't the right thing for them. So, what we try and do, and that's the reason, to Blake's point earlier, why it's always good for us to have a couple of conversations on the phone first, because you can normally get a good idea as to whether people are going to believe in this or not through a couple of conversations. We try and go and visit those people who, indicate to us that their ears are wide open to hear us out. And if it comes down to, a question of the investment, then there's ways that we can try and phase that to focus on certain areas of the lab to begin with. Or if people want to see this for themselves, then there's always the ability for us to leave a unit behind for a period of time or try it out in a specific area. And, once that happens, then people typically want to expand this out, because then you get people working in some environments that start to question, well, why don't we have it? And people just start to see the difference, whether that's, by running a finger along a dusty desk, or opening up the unit and seeing how bad the filter is inside there, or, taking a look at the screen as it shows the real-time reduction of PM 2.5. So the quick answer is, if people don't want to believe, then they won't believe. And really there's not a lot we can do to change people's mindset. If this is at the foundation of their belief that, I've survived 50 years in a lab and not had this, so I can carry on without it, then, that's just not the lab for us to try and help.
It's like anything in life. If you want it,
sure,
you're going to go for it. If you don't want it, you can't convince people of what they don't want to know.
And this is, we see a huge trend. If you can look at the workplace environment now as younger generations, the people that are going to be working in dental labs in 10 to 15 years are, they're 10 years old today. So their expectation of what an employer provides for them is going to be very different to what a technician would have expected 10 to 15 years ago. And that's only going to continue to evolve. People are more conscious of the quality of the water they're drinking, their intake of nutritious, food and fruits and vegetables, and the rise of sit-stand desking, to the conversation earlier and some of Tad's points. So this is going to evolve, and it's going to evolve very quickly. And there's going to be an increasing level of pressure on the employer to do things like this. And the people who take care of their people will retain good people and will get great work out of those people. And that's the same whether you're in a law office, a dental lab, wherever you are in the world. That's just a fact. And people's expectations are changing. There's no doubt.
I completely agree. Just like
true.
I said, my son's 20, and he's constantly talking about the air quality and how his back feels and all sorts of things that I got numb to, since I've been there 25, 30 years. So I agree. That's a great point. And it's important that we put ourselves ahead of the curve.
Exactly, and they're the people that we'd love to talk to. On the back of today is those that want to be proactive, and Tad is right at the front of this movement, and we're just genuinely happy to hear the feedback. It's just the same as our residential users. We can read reviews all day of how this has given people a little bit more sleep in the nighttime, or helped their kids' asthma condition, and hearing Tad talk about how he feels about his people and how his people feel about that work environment. That's why we do this.
That is amazing. I love it. So where can people learn more about the AeraMax?
So we have a website, so people can go to AeraMaxPro.com. So that's AeraMaxPro.com. Or people can get in touch with Blake or myself directly. So our email addresses would be our initial and then family name. So Bobosky at fellows.com, or mbooth at fellows.com. And that's fellows with an E, FELLOWES.com. Or just Google AeraMax, and you should find the website on there. So yeah, there's multiple ways. We're happy to connect on LinkedIn, or via email, or via a phone conversation, whichever works best for people.
Excellent. And when this finally airs, I'll make sure that I have all the links up on the show notes so people can instantly find you guys. So that's great.
Yeah, and I'd like to add my phone number. They can give me a call anytime, 630-441-0610, and I'd be happy to talk to them about air quality in their lab.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate it, guys. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot.
Same here. No idea. And I will be calling you.
Interesting.
You will be hearing from me.
Great. We appreciate the opportunity. We really do. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us on, and we look forward to speaking to some listeners soon.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So, Tad, thank you for putting this together. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
I appreciate your real-life experiences in the lab. I appreciate that outlook. And Mike and Blake, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
A big thank you to Tad, Blake, and Mike for sharing this obvious but not so often thought of idea of air quality in a dental lab. Just a reminder that if you're interested in learning more or want to get in touch with them, check out this episode's webpage on voicesfromthebench.com for all their links and emails. So have you seen the latest LMT magazine? It's an issue that has the 2018 wage report in it. Barb, you mentioned that when we had Judy Fishman on way back on episodes 6 and 7, always available at voicesfromthebench.com, that you use that issue the most.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me. Being in Indiana where the cost of living is not that high, I would find it difficult to hire an entry-level employee in at the rates listed in LMT. What surprised me was that a denture setup was $11.77. But the survey shows that we pay our average delivery driver more than that.
Wow.
I find that interesting. It's never been a secret that technicians on average don't get paid what they're worth because we can't get what our restorations are worth.
I actually flipped through those pages and went to the larger lab and went down to ceramics and porcelain buildup technician to see 1 to 3 years because I'm training my son. And I brought it to him and showed him the article and showed him all of the wages and, where he's at. And he's pretty much right in line where they say he should be. So, I really do use it for myself personally, for my company. I gave it to my HR manager, my director of manufacturing. So, like I said, we use them from year to year to year to year. It's interesting and it's important.
It gives you an idea what everybody's doing. So sometimes you don't know. If you got any thoughts on the LMT magazine, send us an email at info@voicesfromthebench.com. And if you got enough to say, we'll bring you on the podcast and we'll talk about it. Remember, to get a t-shirt and buy a raffle ticket, all links at voicesfromthebench.com. Join us next week as we start a conversation with 2 seasoned removable technicians that have embraced the digital denture and the future of it in our industry.
I'm excited.
All right, everybody, that's all we got this week. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye, guys. Have a great week. I'm so not surprised.